Yo, what's up, guys? Neverender here, and it is Friday, so we're talking about intergame stuff. Excuse me if I sound like a little congested. I'm getting over being sick, so I'm all hopped up on medication right now. Hopefully, I'll get cleared out before I go out tonight. But let's dive into intergame stuff. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about your ego and the role it plays in your game, and how you should view it and keep it in check, basically, because your ego is not a good thing. Now, that might sound counterintuitive to you guys because you know how important it is to be confident around women, and you go out and you see guys who seem to be doing good with women, usually having it seems like really big egos. What you want to kind of confidently communicate to women, though, is the authentic you and a real attractive self and a real high self-esteem. And that sort of self-esteem and that kind of authenticity is separate from your ego. Your ego isn't authentic. Your ego is kind of cultivated from your interpretation of experiences. And in almost all cases, your ego is going to be one of the biggest obstacles you have to overcome from keeping yourself from growing and developing. Your ego isn't designed to help push you. It's designed to hold you back, and it is designed to immobilize you. Something I've noticed is that the ego plays different roles depending on where you are in your development in game. At the beginning stages, maybe you don't feel like there's any ego involved at all. If you have no game whatsoever, you're terrified of talking to women, you hate going out, all these kind of things, you might think, well, ego's not really a problem for me. I have no confidence in this area. But I think it's funny, ego always has a way of kind of getting in through the back door. If you go out, for example, I think one thing your ego can definitely get in the way for you at like a beginning level is when you get exposed to all the bullshit that is involved in game. It is ridiculous, the stuff we deal with when we go out. Like I don't know, I enjoy it now and I think it's fun and whatever, but like dealing with drunk girls, dealing with like hostile guys, I mean, having to wait in freaking lines, having to pay ridiculous amounts of money for alcohol and cover, and just like there's new bullshit you get exposed to every single night. And if you're somebody who isn't used to this sort of environment, or someone who maybe comes from a really like on a professional level, like you're really successful, this kind of thing game might just seem like honestly like complete bullshit. And that is your ego there. I'm telling you, fuck this. This is ridiculous. I'm above this. So you have to watch out for that. Your ego at a beginning level is going to keep you from fully diving into it. It's also going to be saying things like, game in general, like this idea of guys going out and trying to cultivate a skill set where they can like meet and attract women. You can, if you have any part of you that says like that shit's weird, it's embarrassing, that's your ego right there too. So even at the beginning level, if you have no game whatsoever, you're still going to be fighting your ego. In field too, your ego is going to be pushing you not to act, afraid, like the fear of being rejected, fear of being kind of misinterpreted or coming off as weird or anything like that, your fear about people judging you. That's all your ego there. We talked about in, I think, my very first intergame post about how when you're going out, you should basically have the attitude of a kid in a toy store. Like just being a little kid. Like a little kid does not care about who's judging them or what people think about him. And why is that? Well, it's because a kid doesn't have an ego. A kid is just pure self-esteem. He just operates based on what he thinks is best, and he doesn't really think much beyond that. It's only after we start to get older and we start to develop this ego around our actions that we start caring about what people think and how we're being perceived. When you should go out, it should be just a celebration of who you are and just be completely liberating. One of the coolest things about game is that it should become for you guys this opportunity to just be who you are and just be totally, disconnected from your ego and be able to just completely express yourself. Like that should be one of the highlights and the most fun parts about game. And it's so important to try to recognize your ego early on and always keep an eye out for it. Always try to always separate yourself from that. Whenever you feel your ego coming up, like, oh, I'm afraid this girl is judging me, just recognize that that's not you and focus on your real purpose in game, the process that you've fallen in love with of self-development and growing and, building that self-esteem, building up your identity and having that real confidence about you. Always focus on that. And when your ego comes in and tries to worry about things like how is someone perceiving me right now, or how is this person judging me, or it tries to give you bad beliefs about, whether or not you'll ever be successful with women, or you're ever going to be able to attract the quality of girl you want, or whether or not you're worthy of this girl. Whenever your ego comes into play, just recognize it for what it is. You don't have to try to fight it. Just observe it. Say, this isn't me. This isn't my real emotion. This is my ego trying to cultivate these emotions inside me to keep me from acting. Now, something you're going to notice as you start to get more experience, your ego is going to be taking different forms to try to immobilize you. One thing I realized is that when I started to have some successes and I was getting like recognition like from my friends and stuff as being like, oh dude, you're fucking crushing it, you're like killing it with girls, whatever. You start to kind of cultivate, your ego starts to cultivate this identity about you being really good with women. And you might think that's healthy. It's like, oh, okay, now my ego is like thinking more healthily. It went from, oh, you're shitty with women to now, oh, you're good with women. But how is that going to mess you up? Well, think about it. If you're going out every night, you should be going really hard, and you should be getting blown out. You're going to be making mistakes, but that's all okay because you understand, like as I said earlier, you've fallen in love with the process and you're moving forward. But if your ego has cultivated this idea or this identity about you being really good with women, its number one job now is to try to protect that identity, and the best way to protect that identity is to keep you from acting. So, like at an intermediate level, where you're going out and you're getting good reactions, maybe every once in a while you like get a makeout or something like that, you get addicted to just creating good emotions like that. You just love opening sets, getting girls laughing, and then just leaving after that, maybe getting a number, and that's like as far as it goes. You get stuck at this level where you don't push yourself or push the sets or all the way to the very end and just like burn it to the ground, because things might go bad if you try to escalate things more, if you start trying to go for more makeouts or start going for pulls. So instead of burning sets to the ground, you opt to just play it safe and not grow in order to protect your ego. And like at an advanced level, you might be pulling, but let's say maybe you're pulling like eights. Like eights is your general, like sevens and eights and things like that is what you are pulling, and you want to make that, part of you wants to make that big jump to where you're crushing it with like nines and tens, but your ego is afraid of being damaged, and it keeps you from approaching those nines and tens, or keeping you from becoming authentically or communicating authentically when you go up and talk to those nines and tens. I've had nights where I've gone out and I've seen like a really hot girl who, like, I'm still like trying to shape the beliefs, like, yes, you know what, she and I were on the same level, and I can get this girl. Like, I'm still working on fully internalizing those beliefs, where like even like the hottest girl in the world, it's like, nope, it doesn't matter, here we go, I'm going in and I'm just gonna be me and it's gonna be fine. But if your ego realizes that you're still working on those beliefs, it's going to jump on that and say, hey, don't approach. It's going to try to keep you from taking action there. It's going to try to immobilize you. Because if you do get rejected, that hurts your ego. It can get to the point where you don't want to go out at nights because you're starting to do well, and now you're afraid that if you go through a dry spell, or you start like not doing as well as you were doing before, and you face a lot of rejection, or you kind of like, game's up and down. There's a lot of variance in game. Some nights you're awesome, and the very next night you might suck. And your ego recognizes that, and it's going to try to keep you from acting. So you have to be really careful at that intermediate advanced level to not get this idea in your head like, yeah, dude, I'm awesome, I'm the pimp, I'm crushing it. Because if your ego can find a way to use that as a way to immobilize you, it will. So learn to adopt those beliefs, or try to adopt those beliefs, but do it in a way to where it's actually core to who you are. Like, it's actually like a deep set belief, and no sort of exterior result is going to change that belief. Braddock always says, like, game, it's just a skill set. That's all it is. It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't make you a superhero if you can talk to women. It's just a skill set that you've taken time to work on. Furthermore, like, if you really want to be successful in this over the long run, the mindset you need to have, and it's one Braddock talks about a lot, is that you need to fall in love with the process. That ultimately the girls and stuff and the successes and the cool stories are nice, but what you really get out of this whole journey and this whole experience is a deeper understanding of who you are, and developing yourself and, just becoming an authentic you and building the ideal you, right? That the ultimate attractive version of yourself. And that growth and development is really what's going to keep you in the game for a long time. If you just get wrapped up in kind of like exterior results, you're not going to be able to survive in this. The emotional lows are when you have bad nights, your emotions are going to get out of control. You're going to hit lower lows than normal, and you're just going to get burned out. On the other side of the coin too, your ego is going to keep you from really appreciating the good experiences too. I mean, the positive development you make every night. In game, a lot of your improvement's going to be really slow and steady, just a little bit better every day, and there might be a couple of positive things that happen every night. But just because you didn't pool one night, or because maybe last night you hooked up with this total hottie, but tonight you didn't, if your ego is in control of, is going to be the driving force behind all your actions, you might think that second night where you don't hook up with a crazy hot girl, that the night was a waste. But maybe you did plenty of awesome things that night, like little improvements that night. Maybe you had better eye contact that night. Or maybe you had better tonality on that second night. But you don't get to recognize that and improve from it if your ego is the driving force behind all your actions. So it's going to really hinder your development if you're letting your ego get out of control big. Because all your ego cares about is trying to validate what it stands for. So your ego doesn't care about your eye contact or your tonality. All your ego cares about is the results. And so all of these positive improvements you might be making on any given night go unnoticed, and then your mind doesn't internalize those positive improvements, and then all of a sudden your whole development starts to slow down. But if you can learn to recognize good nights and bad nights as both just part of the process, and always keep in mind the deeper meaning behind all this, that's the mindset you're going to need to ultimately reach those quantum levels of success that I hope all you guys are shooting for. I firmly believe anybody can do this with the right mindsets and the right work ethic and discipline constantly, and if you're constantly taking right action. I don't care where you come from, what your background is, what you look like, how much money you make, whatever, you can still be successful in women. So when you go out tonight, guys, remember that you are not your ego. Who you really are is that driving force underneath you that's always moving you towards the right action and achieving what you want out of life. Appreciate and love this journey you're on. Understand that you're going to reach your goals when you reach them, and when you reach one goal, you're just going to set a higher goal and start working towards that. The process is never ending, but you love it for that reason. And when you face those bumps in the road, don't get down on yourself. Whether it be, from an external level, like, yeah, you're on a little, like, you're on a cold streak, that's fine. Or if it's like, if you recognize that your ego's getting in the way, or that your mental game is kind of messed up right now, don't get down, don't compound on the mistakes by getting down on yourself. If your ego keeps you from maybe approaching that, ridiculous stunner, just say, all right, you know what, I missed that one, but it's all good. I'll get it next time. I recognize it, and I'm learning from it. With all that said, guys, I hope you have a freaking awesome weekend. You go hard, go balls to the wall. Just, totally throw that ego out the window and, accumulate as much experience as you can from this weekend. Have a fuck ton of fun. It's really been a pleasure working on this blog for the last, 2.5 months or whatever it's been. I've really fallen in love with, putting this stuff out there. I hope it's been helpful for you guys. It's been really helpful for me. I've been going back and looking at old blog posts and be like, oh, wow. I love the stuff I was saying there earlier. I'm glad I reread that because I needed to hear that. All right, guys, so that wraps this post up, and I'll talk to you on Monday.